Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining another monthly installment of the Succurri webinars. Today, we have got part two of a two-part series in a practical look at AI adoption in your business. Got Grant and Andrew Ekstrom with me today, owners, co-managers of Succurri. So hi, gentlemen. How's it going?
Always a pleasure, Tony.
And I want to let everybody know Andrew Ekstrom is a virtual CIO, and Grant focuses as a virtual CISO. Now, Grant, tell us what a CISO is.
Yeah, so it's Chief Information Security Officer. So he manages the data, I protect it.
Awesome. Awesome. So great executive team and then business owners for decades. So let's get into today's discussion. We'll go through a little bit of a recap of part one. Andrew will have you touch base on that. So we'll catch people up, kind of like the old Netflix, do you want to recap of the last episode kind of deal? We'll take a look at kind of how to assess if your business is AI ready, and Grant will talk a bit about that, and then we'll go through the steps of how you implement or at this stage of the game with AI, how you implement this stuff in your business, and then we've got a pretty cool announcement of a giveaway at the very end, so stick around for that. All right, well. What we've done at Succurri is you guys have really got into the AI consulting and implementation piece of it. AI's everywhere into all these different businesses. So this is our menu out on the website. You go check that out. But I try to categorize the conversation we're going to have. And today's definitely about AI. You can subscribe to YouTube. Our YouTube channel, click subscribe, and we post these recordings out on YouTube and other videos. So it's a great way to get information. Just scan that QR code. That'll take you right to Succurri's page and subscribe. And what did they say? Smash that bell, because then you get notified on your phone.
That's right.
So go ahead and do that. All right, let's get started. Andrew, why don't you recap episode one?
Yeah, so if you didn't watch our first webinar on AI, which was practical AI in your life, it's on our YouTube page. I suggest you just go there, just search for Succurri, and you'll find that we have a whole library of different topics that Grant and Tony and I have talked about over the last year and a half. But that one specifically talked about how AI has become so prevalent in the last 18 months. I mean, 18 months ago, you didn't even know what it was, or it was something you would hear about in a movie. And now it's real, we're dealing with it on a daily basis. So not to go into like too much detail, but ultimately what it is you're gathering data. We're doing tremendous analysis on it. AI is taking intelligent looks at data and making patterns out of it that would have otherwise required a human to do. It allows us to enhance our creativity, expand our creativity. It allows us to automate processes that that data is dependent on, and we can have like lots of departmental goals that are part of it. We can have different organizational goals, but ultimately that webinar was about your personal use. So the diagram here just showed the incredible adoption from April 2024 to 2025, from 5.4% to 78% adoption. There are lots of different AI models that you can use. And so ChatGPT is one we all hear about. Microsoft Copilot is quick on its heels. Google's Gemini is really coming up. I heard of a customer using Claude yesterday. So it doesn't matter which model you use. It's time to get in and start using a model for your own personal needs.
Don't use DeepSeek.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my security realm. Don't use DeepSeek.
Unless you're in the Chinese government.
Yes. Or you want to freely give over your information to the Chinese government. Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about in the last webinar and really wanted to make relatable to people as to why they should be using AI is that there's a lot of day-to-day things that AI can help you with as a companion, as a butler, as a workout coach. And so we showed several examples where we live generated a meal plan that had a purpose, right? Like we like Chinese and Italian. We used it to analyze data that was not in a good format and put it into a spreadsheet. You can use it to draft important emails. Oftentimes that's like, people have a writer's block because they don't know how to draft the email. Use it to manage budgets. You put your financial data in there. And like if you're a route driver, you can use it to optimize your routes. Also, one we did was creating a workout plan for me specifically. And so, lots of things that you can get value with. So what we wanted to make sure that everyone understood from the last webinar was it's time to start using these models, to become familiar with them, and to start having them become part of your life. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to solve world problems. Getting your meal plan figured out and a grocery list made automatically sometimes feels like it's solving a world problem. So just jump on in there and start using these tools.
I think that's a theme you'll hear us talk about. You got to get in and get started.
Among many different platforms, not just AI, but security, compliance. You just have to start somewhere.
It's a theme, right? I think we'll see a few themes throughout the conversation here. But, it feels like we're pretty early. When I say we, I mean society and business is pretty early in this idea of using AI. And so to have a, quote unquote maturity model, well, how mature is it? Well, this will evolve over time, but maybe Grant, you can talk a little bit about these different stages and maybe what's involved and kind of where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think probably most of the conversations that both Andrew and I are having, we're finding that clients are really in kind of that AI exploring, which is open up an app and start, putting in some prompts, whatever the prompt may be, just start there. And then you're able to progress past that phase pretty quickly into an experimenter. And experimenting is just really, hey, I know that this is capable of doing some amazing things. I'm going to throw some data at this AI model and see if there's anything of value that comes out. And that could be from it could be your workout plan, right? But in a case of a business, it might be taking some very specific data. And we'll talk about the, kind of a good experiment that I used here in a little bit, but taking some data and some processes that you developed in your company and feeding it to this model and seeing what results come from it. And then figuring out, okay, now you're getting to potentially that next level where you're getting to that optimizer. We're like, oh, okay, my experiment actually provided some level of value. What if I take it to that next level and actually start utilizing that tool in my business and providing some efficiencies that maybe we didn't have before? It might be access to information. It might be shortcutting a process. There's lots of different methodologies about how to go about that route. And then you get into the exemplar, which is, I would say that's the highest level where you're really, really going down the path of integrating all your different business systems and really leveraging AI to automate tasks that have been done, mundane tasks that are being done by humans right now that could easily be supplemented by AI.
Yeah. I think when AI first started, or I remember when I first started hearing about it, it was like, oh, AI is just going to be this thing that we plug in and it knows what to do. That definitely is not the case.
I like your analogy about it's like the smartest toddler you've ever met.
Yeah, it's like a 8-year-old savant.
Yeah, exactly.
It knows everything, but has no life experience.
Correct.
It's so funny. So you mentioned an example. So you start, thinking about these different maturity levels. You mentioned like an experiment or an example.
Yeah. So going back to what we were talking about, like kind of where we're at. So at Succurri, we've been playing with AI for some time now, and so we've gone into that. I would say that we're really in that optimizer and really get into the final stage of the exemplar. And so this next slide right here is showing that this is actually one process that we have at our help desk and it's a very small portion of the process. It doesn't actually fit on the page, but it's a huge workflow of how we deal with turning on or disabling user accounts. And in the modern business environment, especially like the IT environment, there's typically 12, 15, maybe more accounts that an individual user will have or an individual employee will have at an organization. And some of it's in our systems, some of it's in the company systems, some of it's in the cloud, some of it's local. They're all over the place. And so we've gone through and documented that process and built out workflows that were able to automate that process. And so we've now defined the processes that we want to use to implement AI. And AI then starts bringing in that information and we start teaching it all of these things. So right now we have technicians pushing buttons to be able to do these things and the workflow triggers, but we're really close to being able to have AI just automatically know when to do it and execute it perfectly every single time. Now, obviously, garbage in, garbage out, that doesn't change. And so if the AI model doesn't know how to do it correctly, it will always do it incorrectly. And so it's really important to make sure that you have a really good repeatable process.
It's funny how you talk about it too. You said the word, you have to teach AI. And
Yeah.
I can't wait to get into that because it's kind of a strange thing to think about. I've got to teach this thing that's supposed to be so smart. Like so
it has the ability to learn, but it doesn't necessarily know what it needs to know.
Right. So we'll get into that. I think Andrew has a pretty cool example and kind of. So Grant, let's talk about what do you think it means to have your business be ready? We talked a little bit about maturity, but maybe you can go into AI readiness. What is that? How do you look at it from a business standpoint?
Yeah. So you kind of going back to it. So you have to start somewhere, right? And so understanding where you sit in that maturity level is a good start. Like, have you ever played with AI before? Chances are you have, and you maybe didn't know. I mean, nowadays, if you do a Google search, AI is going to be most of your results that you're going to see nowadays. If you're like in Chrome, Gemini's up in the corner, and it's spitting out results that actually have become pretty good. And so that's something that you really have to start understanding that is the wave of how search engines are going to work. So if you've gone past that experimental stage and out of the first stage and start getting into the experimental stage, now it's like, okay, you maybe have got you purchased a license for like your Chat GTP or your Copilot, and you started really playing with it a little bit. And like Andrew was using it for building out workout plans or meal plans, right? That's a really good a personal experiment on if I feed this thing data or I prompt it for something, what does it do? In a business case, you start adding your personal or your company data to the engine and feeding this data and teaching it all of your processes and procedures or your document sets. It could be your HR policies. It could be your IT policies. And just letting it absorb it all in and then start playing with it and seeing what sort of information it brings back. Now, disclosure, obviously, don't feed your personal data or your corporate protected data to open engines, right? So that there's a difference between a paid personal engine and just Chat GTP out on the web that you just throw whatever into. Don't put your personal data.
Elaborate on that just a little bit more.
Yeah. So if you make sure, one, check your company policies about AI if you have them already, to what kind of data can be put in there. So that, like I said, this is my disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer, but make sure that if you are starting to go down and actually put in potentially proprietary data, you should be paying for that instance of AI. By doing so, chances are you're going to have an AI that is your own engine and your data stays in that protected container. If you are using AI that is for free, that is a public container and that information is now public. So you have to make sure that you understand the difference. But if you are going to start experimenting, definitely get your own your LLM, I can say it out loud, your own AI engine, whatever it might be, and also understand, go back to our last webinar where we talked about the different models and what they do, but definitely make sure that you get a paid version. And so from the experimentation side, you just have to start playing with it. You have an idea, throw the data at it, throw some prompts at it, and see what happens. And then all of a sudden you will start seeing some valuable data or some valuable information that starts coming back. And now you've got to that spot where you're like, oh, okay, now I can start building on it. It's kind of like the light bulb turns on in your head. And now you're able to start playing with it a little bit more.
So I'm going to touch on that for a second, because I think when you start prompting it and testing what information it gives back to you and start messing around, it almost teaches you how capable it is.
Correct.
Andrew, you went through a recent kind of experience with AI where you were like, or at least it felt like that on the other line. And I went through the same experience, so I'm not, totally making fun of it. I'm just making fun of the process. Like, really? It does this? Like, this is what it does? I could do that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like when you try it out and test it, it teaches you like this is what it can do, and then you can formulate. Oh, now I have these goals. Now I can go really dig. I don't know.
Well,
Great.
it allows you to test the boundary, right? So you started out at a very slow pace, and then all of a sudden the light bulb comes on. You're like, what can't this thing do, right? And so it used to be maybe that I would have it help me, like I'd have it proof an email, right? Okay, well that's pretty basic, but it provided value. I'm getting to the spot now where I guess maybe we'll get to the next slide, where I actually took our processes that we use for all of our projects. So like when we do implementation projects, we have all the processes documented. We'll just hop it in here. And so what I did is I applied AI to this data folder, which keep in mind, these are just Word documents, PDF documents, Excel documents. And I said, go forth and learn. And I just turned it on, and I turned it into basically a standard operating procedure wiki. And so now with all that data, I can go ask it a question about how to do something. And so what you're seeing here is I'm like said, hey, how do I migrate to Microsoft 365? That was the prompt. That's all I prompt. And it came back and it said, oh, here you go. Here's your pre-migration steps. I'm like, in this, we're only seeing a small view of it, but it produced all the different steps that an engineer has to follow, and all the basically like, hey, here's your little gotchas, pay attention to these in a very quick set. So if I have an engineer that gets lost in something and doesn't know where to find it, rather than like, hey, go dig through all these documents and spend hours trying to find that information, here it's just going to spit it back out to you really quickly. And there was the accuracy was phenomenal. And then I took it one more step from that and said, okay, coming from the sales side of things, this is really important. Like if I was doing a kickoff call for a client that I was doing this migration for, I could turn this into a presentation. And so I literally, I copied and pasted that, threw it over into Copilot and said, turn this into a PowerPoint slide. And I kid you not, this is what it produced.
So wait a minute. You said, here's all the information we have internally about a bunch of stuff. And in this example, you said, how do I do a Office 365 migration? It gave you the answers. And then you said, take that, put it into a sales presentation so that we could use this for internal training or whatever.
Well, actually, even it's client ready. That was the beauty of it. I was like, I can actually use this to talk with a client when I'm doing a kickoff call for this project. It had a very detailed, like, these are the things that we're going to be doing in this project. And it was business focused, right? It wasn't technical, even though the information it pulled from was extremely technical. It spit out this presentation. So I could actually use this and say, hey, these are the things that we're going to do, and to be able to set expectations for how that project's going to turn out. I've done many of these sales presentations for these projects, and they take hours or potentially days. This was produced, like, I kid you not, within like 2 minutes or less. I was
so
like,
how do you do the old trust but verify? Okay, it spits all this stuff out, but you still have to go in and look at it. I mean,
of course, right? I mean, that's the beauty of AI is that it is amazingly intelligent and stupid at the same time. And so if you have to go back and review and understand what it's produced, right? This is not a tool for, like, if you don't understand what you're doing, that it's just that it'll get you through. Like, I had a conversation with some educational sector. I'm like, you have to understand what the prompts are and be able to verify the information that it produced and be able to go back and correct it and understand where it went wrong. But the legwork's done, right? Like all the hard work, the heavy lifting, I just have to go back and edit it.
So let's walk. So this really is your way of teaching it. This is the data you gave. This is the information.
Correct.
So when you say teaching it, it's like, pull from this information. And then here is when you're prompting it, it's, okay, take that information and tell me something or do something with it. In this case, you have to know what to do with it. You also have to know what's in the data set, what you taught it. And then in the end, you're like, okay, this is what I want you to do. Now here's an application of that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it goes back to the garbage in, garbage out, right? So the information that I fed it has to be correct, and the information it puts back to me has to be correct, and then the product that I produce from that also has to be correct. And so you have to check it all the way through. But keep in mind, it takes all the heavy lifting out of it. So now I'm going back and making some small tweaks versus having to build it from scratch and potentially get the writer's block of like, oh, okay, what's that step again? And then go look it up. So it's extraordinary time saved. And this is just one example. Like I said, this was the experimental stage.
Yeah.
Of just kind of throwing some, like, I was like, well, see what it does, and poof.
Yeah.
And before we move on, Tony, if you go back to that first slide, not first, but the one that had all the folders on it. So what I want to highlight to everyone here is like, this is every company that we work with, or almost every company I've ever seen, has a repository of folders somewhere, right? They have a server with a map drive, or they have SharePoint or OneDrive. In this case, we use Ignite, which we think is great. All of these tools have AI add-ins. So like, this isn't something that requires high-level technical people like Grant and I to implement. This is right at everyone's fingertips. And all Grant did is he told the AI add-in, look at my folders, read my files, tell me what you think. And then he started asking it questions. And then he took the answer and then gave it to AI and said, make a PowerPoint. So like, to take someone from zero AI in their business to doing this example, it's like a 30-minute process of setup, probably. So it's very low barrier. It's very accessible. And like, I would say that this kind of example would be really good to where I would like to see people at, within the next 6 months. Like, this would be kind of a critical thing where you're using AI to leverage this information in your business. So I just wanted to highlight, like, this is very accessible to everyone.
Well, and in this experience, so there's two things that I'm picking up. One is there's built-in AI, and then there's AI you have to build, right? Because there's, you talk about those language models and how that's being used. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the other thing is, when you look at this, it's not far, you're not far off from being able to go, oh, well, if these are the steps, what systems do you use for those steps? And then go do the thing you just said to do.
That's absolutely 100% correct. Yeah. It is that once you get it to a spot where everything is 100% correct, and it's producing the consistent results, yeah, you can certainly start tying it into other things and saying, hey, okay, go execute this. I mean, like, code is being written today with AI. Like, that is how all code going forward is going to be mostly generated by AI. Obviously, you need to have computer science majors that are looking at the code to make sure that it's correct and it's not doing some weird things. But you're going to see some widely used technology that way.
Well, and the scary thing is, like, engineering and math, who's the one that's going to go, well, yeah, that's right. That's correct. I just thought I was told you this story. I'll tell it to everybody else, but it's like, my mom, 87-year-old mother, goes, well, why do they call it artificial intelligence if it is right? And Grant, you were perfect. You're like, well, because it's not coming from gray matter. It's artificially generated. So, there's still some kinks I think we'll have to work out. But for this kind of stuff, this is a great experiment. It's almost like I think you said this, you become an editor, not a writer.
Correct.
It writes it all. But you still have to edit it. You still have to go through it. So this is Microsoft Office 365 migration example. You talked about the tools inside of Copilot, inside of applications. So now let's talk a little bit about something outside, and we talk about GPTs.
Yeah, so I can jump into that. So this is a screenshot, but I'm going to share my screen here really quickly. So 1 second. See here.
I think you can just take over the screen share, right?
And
didn't anyone ever tell you about doing live examples on webinars?
I know, right? Because you got goofballs like me that go, how do you do that?
So you should see
they work 100% of the time.
Yeah, you should see the what's on your mind prompt here on the screen. Do you see that?
We do.
So this is my ChatGPT subscription. And one of the things we talked about in our personal AI webinar is you should have a paid or at least a free subscription to ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or one of those, like after this call, you should go sign up for something at least. I signed up for free. I had a little conversation with AI one night while I was sitting on my phone in my bed, realized it was really powerful, and I bought the subscription like the next day. It's $20 a month. I'm not selling ChatGPT or anything, but it's not expensive. So
we are selling Copilot though, so
we
give
do
us a call.
sell Copilot through Microsoft licensing. So you can ask ChatGPT all kinds of questions. This is where I created my meal plans and my workout plans, and you can have it be a travel agency. What should I do for my itinerary through Europe? But when you go to the next level, which is I need to teach a model about something that I think is important, and then we're going to talk about business specifically, you can create your own models. And so this is really like the next experimental evolutionary stage before you move into that optimizer stage. So in here, you create your own GPT. I'm not going to show you the process. I've already done it, but so I have one for MSP interfaces, and that's a spin-off company we're actually creating to help other companies connect their business systems to AI and connect their business systems to other business systems. So we write integration. I needed to write a lot of marketing material, and I needed it to have really compelling like quotes and social media posts, and I had to do it fast. And so what I decided to do is create this GPT model, and I was going to teach it about what we do and about the products that we integrate. And I went through and I taught it how to do all kinds of cool stuff. And I'll show you just a really quick example. So this will be something here. Let's see. So this is a website. We use this for our staff engagement. So what I want the GPT to do is I want it to learn about Cruise. So I go to Cruise webpage. I copy and paste the URL or the address. I come back to ChatGPT and I say, please add to your behavior the information on this website. And I just pointed at that website. ChatGPT is now looking up that website. It's going to get everything on that main page, and it's going to come back and tell me now what it's learned. And when I told it add to your behavior, that meant keep that in long-term memory. And so what I did is I've done this for like dozens of different programs we integrate with, and I put in all the integration code, and then I would tell this GPT model why that's important. And now it can tell me all kinds of compelling things. So like I'm going to ask ChatGPT why someone would want to use MSP interfaces, and we'll see what it comes back with here. So why would someone want to use MSP interfaces services? And it thinks for a second, and it just starts dumping information, right? You're unlocking your automation, your efficiency, custom integrations, visibility, security and compliance, strategic advantage and differentiation, trusted expertise. Seconds, right? Like I didn't think that. I didn't tell it to think that. Just the language model knew this because it knows how to look for patterns. It knows when you teach it something that it means other things as well. And so like for us, we're using this. Like now I'm writing web page, or like I'm doing a page on each of our integrations on our web page in about 30 minutes versus it would have taken me probably an entire day. So I'm getting a tremendous amount of value because I'm cutting down our development time by a tremendous amount, by a 16th or to a 16th of what it would normally be. But the GPT model, when I'm done, is going to be an expert in what MSP interfaces does. And it can help our employees understand our services and our products better. It can help our customers ask questions of like, hey, how do I integrate my healthcare system into my accounting system? Or how do I integrate my billing system into my purchasing system? And so MSP interfaces, ChatGPT will come back and provide that information. You can make the models anything you want. I've heard of several people who have created their own models, and they're teaching the models or feeding the models the philosophies, the books, the writings, the recordings of the greatest thought leaders in humanity. And they're putting it into the GPT model. And the GPT model is designed to recognize patterns, right? So it's what are these great thinkers' algorithms they use to make decisions? What are their protocols they use to make decisions? And what's getting spit back out is like, it's amazingly high quality consulting and coaching and mindset. And so, I don't use that personally, but it's for someone who wants to get that kind of value back. You would pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in coaching to ask those people those questions that the GPT model will do for almost for free. So what does this look like for your own business? We don't necessarily know yet, but what I would tell you at the least, the easiest way to get this started is to hook up a chat GPT or a GPT system of some kind to your business tools, right? To your primary sales system, to your service delivery tool. Have it read the database and start coming back with information. And really quickly, you're going to recognize that it can do something valuable for you. And that is where you transition from that experimenter stage to the optimizer model that we showed you earlier. You're now in a level 3 of maturity. So I'll stop sharing my screen, but that shows you some of the value that these tools have. So Tony, I'll hand it back to you.
Well, before you move on, so I'm going to raise the cautious paranoia or the healthy paranoia flag. Obviously, when hooking these tools up to your data systems, there are questions that you want to ask. You want to make sure that you have some professionals in your corner that understand potentially compliance regulatory environments, the risks associated with having AI connected to your data models, and also just the right way to be able to do it. So yes, the answer is you need to experiment, you need to hook to these systems, but have somebody that understands how to do it.
That sounds like a small little pitch for Succurri could help you do that.
Well, it was my disclaimer, but yes.
We're making, or you guys are making pretty quick work of some of these examples in how to use it and how to go about using it. And we'll talk a little bit about implementation and things. But I think back to the readiness piece of it. I want to go back to that. Do you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So we've skipped over a few things. We got excited and moved right into examples. It's fine. But so now you've tried it, you've tested it, you've kind of like, oh, okay, well, you can kind of see that there are these little pockets of process. You used, adding a new user to all the systems, or creating a sales presentation, or creating internal wiki. So all these applications for this. There's a part now where it's like, okay, we've done some experiments. We've seen what it can do. We've maybe seen what it can do for our business in a few places. Now we have to formulate some goals. And this is where I turn it over to you, Grant, because you're always the best. You always simplify the way you approach things. It's like, first, what do you want to do? So walk me through kind of that and how you start to formulate kind of an AI initiative internally.
Yeah, so I think my last little disclaimer was a great segue, right, for some of these things. So obviously, the formulating the goals and documenting, like you need to understand your procedures to really get to the next level. You can't automate anything if there's nothing to automate. You have to have a workflow, you have to have a process. But after the experimentation of figuring out, like, oh, what can this thing not do? And once you have all that documented, then you can kind of move to the next step. But that's where, like I said, you want to make sure that you have somebody that understands what they're doing, right? It's not just, hey, let's just feed this thing a bunch of information and see what happens. When you get into, I'm going to use this in my business systems, right? And understand that you want to have a trusted advisor. It doesn't have to necessarily be us, right? I'd love it if it was, but you want to have somebody that's in your corner that it understands the technologies, not just AI, but also understands your business systems and what information's there. You also need to know who are the stakeholders in this project, right? So if you're going to be doing a system for HR, you need to have executive buy-off on this. You need to have HR's buy-off on this, and you need to have IT's buy-off on this, because those are all going to be stakeholders in that initiative. And you also need to have some timelines that have been established and metrics for success, right? So if you're going to say, like, I'm going to go down this path and we're going to implement AI, okay, what does that mean, right? There's nothing like you can implement AI tomorrow in 30 minutes, right? So if you're going to go down and implement AI into a business process, how long is it going to take? Who's it going to impact? And when we're done with this, what is the indicator of success? Like, what was the value that we were trying to achieve? And so having some of those things documented and thought through and tabletopped in that exercise are going to be really, really important. Once you get past that stage of figuring out, oh, this is cool, right? I now know I can do this. Let's get to the next step.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we we just went through just a few examples. You could do this across all these systems in business. So you got to kind of figure out, well, why would we start here in this department for our company? So the kind of walk through the implementation strategy, you did it a little bit, but this is a little bit more, at a foundational level, you mentioned this. Hey, what are our goals for doing this? And what are our expected outcomes? You said, metrics for success. Like, for example, if you implement it in marketing, your metric for success might mean you scheduled more sales opportunities. I'm just going to be very general at this point, but did we get more sales opportunities? That might be your metric for success. Or, we have this step that takes us, 4 hours to do and 3 people to do it. We're going to get that down to 1 person and 30 minutes,
Yeah. Or even analyzing, cash flows and being able to save percentage points on interest, right? I'm like, this is something that every part of the business can benefit from it. I think, we talk about crawling before you walk and walking before you run. And so understanding where you want to start in your business, maybe not necessarily your worst pain point in your business, but something that's fairly achievable, I think is probably the best start. Try to get a win right out of the gate. Don't take on the biggest problem that will consume all your time and effort and you may never get it across the finish line. Get some quick wins that really prove the technology, and then ultimately you start getting the buy-off from all the other departments that then now are in line to be able to start implementing those kind of technologies.
Yeah, and just to kind of talk about that from like how we're doing it. So every AI model has kind of its own strengths and weaknesses. Like Copilot is really great with Microsoft Office tool. ChatGPT is really good for being creative. And so you want to play to the strengths of the model you're looking for, but obviously you want it to be a goal that you're going for. So like I needed to do marketing, right? For my MSP interfaces new division we're starting. I needed to do that on a really low budget and I needed it to happen fast. And so versus it taking 8 hours for me to put together a web page or a product page, it's now a half an hour. So that's a huge time savings, right? So we're getting a lot of value back. I leveraged ChatGPT's strength, which is being creative, to do something I needed to get taken care of. In our other parts of our business, like the two most expensive things we do in IT support is set up a new employee and terminate an old employee. And set up accounts, delete accounts, remove settings. Extremely time consuming. We have like almost a week every month that we spend. If there's totally one dedicated tech who does either or, it's pretty expensive. We've spent the last year and a half building connections to all the tools we need to do those things. So we now can do deactivations at about 80% automated. A year that I pay for a software developer and all these tools, it's a really big mountain to go over. And if I'd started with that and that was my only thing I could set my value for success on, I would have said, this is too expensive, it's too time consuming. But now that we're on the other side of it, I can say, but now that I have this, it's a competitive advantage. So, you really have to weigh what you're jumping into, because if you do something that's too heavy for you to carry right now, it's going to crush you and you're not going to see the value of AI and you're going to move on. So pivot to something that you can get real value from immediately. I always talk about incremental value. You want to have a little bit of value today, you get a little more tomorrow, a little bit next day, and before you know it, you got a lot of value you've stocked up.
Yeah. So this kind of leads into the second step or stage where you're kind of taking inventory of everything around, in your case, it was onboarding a new user or setting up a new user.
Yeah. So the inventory process is really, really important just to understand where all your data sits, right? So if you're going to go through the AI process, how do these systems integrate? How does information flow back and forth? And if you don't have that documented, one, from a security perspective, you really should, right? Even if you don't go down the AI route, you should understand how your information flows back and forth. So if something goes wrong, you know how to fix it. Different story, different time. But going through this is a really enlightening process, because now all your departments understand and where their things sit. Like Andy likes to call it their cheese. And so when you start moving around cheese, everybody understands and can't get upset with you. But it's an enlightening process. that everybody's able to get involved in. All the department heads and engineers or employees all have to be involved in that to help out with that documentation.
Yeah. Well, and then the next step is, talk to me about choosing your AI systems. You guys mentioned, like Andrew, you mentioned a little bit like, oh, well, this LLM does this. This one's good at that. But, there's also process involved. So maybe walk me through a little bit about this next part.
Yeah, I mean, so you really do have to start to learn about the different LLMs or the GPT models and figure out what their strengths are. I had a customer yesterday that just sidelined me at a appointment about AI. The appointment was not about AI, but we talked about it, and he's using it. He takes information, underwriting information for real estate deals, and he dumps it into AI, like hundreds of pages of information. He uploads it into I forget the name of the one he uses, but he said that it's very financially friendly, and it spit out basically all the questions he needed to ask as an investor in a big real estate deal of the company that was trying to be the general partner. And so once again, days of time he would have had to spend on that, but it's a very specific skill set that specific model has. So you do have to do a little bit of research on them and get a sense of where you want to be. I've heard that Gemini is really, really good on deep research and finding like really obscure facts. Like I said, ChatGPT is really good on creativity.
Yeah, there are other systems too that are process oriented. I think you showed one on screen that can hook to all. They're like the process backbone, if you think of a spine, and the things going out to the side, the nerves. The spine is like process, and it grabs information and sends information and hooks to APIs and all that stuff. So there's different types of application and that you can use that leverage AI, but that also tie into systems. So
and
it's really important.
those are that's called robotic process automation, and that's a whole webinar in itself. We use one called Roost, and that was the screenshot you showed earlier, where we show all these different stages in our processes. So if you think of AI as like the brain, the robotic process automation is the spinal cord and the arms and the legs. It does all the movement, and the GPT model does all the thinking. And we're heavily investing in that too, because we see that to be a significant place where we'll provide value in the coming years as an IT provider.
Shameless plug for MSP Interfaces.
Yeah, MSPinterfaces.com.
Plug, wink, wink.
Yeah.
No. So this was, Grant, you brought this up a little bit, but take us through this, how you look at, crawl, walk, run in terms of AI implementation and how to start small. What?
Yeah, I always kind of I always go back to like the high school chemistry experiment, right? Where you're kind of putting some things together and you hope it doesn't explode on you, right? And so you put the system together, you have your objectives, you've chosen your tool of choice, and then you start playing with it to see if you're able to achieve your goals. I'm going to tell you the first time out, you are not going to achieve your goals, right? It's going to take some tweaking over time, some slight retooling here and there to get it where you want it to go. But if you've taken small enough chunk out of that problem, not your biggest problem, your smallest problem, and then start playing with it, you are now actually developing your process to take on those bigger problems, because now you understand that I've built what I think this is going to need. I've taught it what it needs to know, and now I turn it on. And Tony, I always like your comment about how do you turn it off, right? And
where's the kill switch?
Where's the kill switch, right? So knowing how to shut it off is a very important part too. And so going through it, and you're going to have many different iterations of test to get it to a spot. And then you're going to get to a spot where we're like, hey, this is actually working. This is producing value that we haven't had before. And then you get to that final spot where you're going into production, right? Like you've now hit the pinnacle, and you're implementing it and assessing the value that it's bringing. And that's where you're getting your measurable success metrics.
And just like we want to make this really accessible to people, and we have all these complex graphs, and we've talked about some pretty cool trick stuff we've done. I will tell you, AI, every one of them is, if you literally all you have to do is create an account, you put in the prompt box that says, I would like to learn more about AI. Can you help me learn? The AI is going to teach you how to interact with it because it knows that that's one of the major hurdles for a beginning user. So don't let that stop you. Like you don't know you don't have to know how to use it. Ask it how to use it. And I'll throw out a challenge here that these are some really easy things to do. Ask your AI to evaluate the top 10 competitors in your market for the type of business you're in. And we did this experiment. So we said, what are the top 10 competitors in IT services in Everett, Washington? And why would you recommend them? And it came back with a list. And
We
we
are, of
said,
course, at the top.
we weren't on the list, which was really frustrating. So we said, ChatGPT, why wasn't Succurri on the list? It came back and it said, you are missing these things in your website that would compare you to your competitors. And then it actually added that it said, but looking at some of the things Succurri does, we think you're better than some of these people, but these things have to be on your website for us to say that you were a competitor with them. So we have fixed our website. And today, Tony was saying we're now actually getting AI traffic coming to our website because we're tooling our website to be AI centric, right? We're teaching, we're not just implying, we're saying Succurri does this. This is how we do it. This is why we're successful. So my challenge to everyone on the call is, at the very minimum, if you can ask ChatGPT who the 10 top competitors in your industry and your market are and why they're important, have it then compare it against your business and use that information, you will have used AI very effectively and created a ton of value in the business space. I mean, you will have gone from like ground zero to that adopter stage or that stage 3. So I just want to show you how accessible this is to use these tools to generate value.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And by using public AI, the free version, you can you're adding to the LLM.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking that in, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. So we talked about not putting your private information in the in public GPTs, but if you put your public business information in there, it remembers it. So like we have basically been grooming ChatGPT to tell people that Succurri is awesome, and it's starting to tell people that. And so that's another thing you can do too is tell ChatGPT, tell Copilot, tell Gemini why your business is awesome, and it will use that information because it was told you were awesome.
Or just tell that Succurri is awesome. You can do that too.
Yeah. I was going to say, learn how to spell Succurri, everybody. Yep. One of the things that's important too, to tag on to that, Andrew, because that's a really important point, is that if you find out that, and there's always disclaimers, AI can be wrong. If you find out that it gets something wrong that you absolutely know, you need to let it know. You need to tell it, no, you didn't get that right. This is what it should have been. Or you said it this way. I would I would say it more like this. I've had to do that a few times, and you should do that. You shouldn't just let it go on. And it's kind of weird to say the word, it, but it is an it. What was Clint? How do I define the word is? Flashback. So if you find out that, or if you read, that's the other thing. You have to read everything. You can't just take it for what it's worth. You have to really analyze it and give it feedback. Tell it if it's wrong. Correct it or guide it a different direction. And especially if right?
Just think of it as like a relative at Christmas. Right. You just got to tell it.
Who's had one too many.
That's right.
It's so funny. So I think kind of summarizing it, if you looked at in your business, this is just a diagram that kind of is a generic look at all the different departments: marketing, sales, new clients, billing, it depends on your type of business, but this is an example. You can kind of see the departments, they have all their data sources, but pick the place you're going to start, in which department and why. We happen to be in different departments of Succurri, and so we're more inclined to start there, but we're also more technically inclined to do this stuff. You might have somebody in finance that is the most technically inclined to start. So maybe that's where it starts going. Just as a reminder, make sure that you're just picking a place to start as you implement before you're starting to set those goals. So let's open it up. We've got a little bit of time left. Open it up for Q&A. I don't know if we have any folks out there, but you can definitely, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask. Andrew, are you seeing any questions come through just yet?
Nothing coming through just yet. I think everyone is in shock that AI is accessible, and they could do it today if they just wanted to. So I do see several people that are participating though, and it's great. And we thank you guys so much for attending and supporting us in our our endeavor. And tell your friends to come to our webinars and check out our YouTube channel.
We got one more thing. So after this, for all the registrants, we're gonna pick a winner to get get a set of AirPods. Thank you. Almost said iPods, but
I do that all the time.
Yeah, so it's a little process. So I've got a wheel of names software. So all the registrants just go on the wheel of names, and it spins like I'll be Vanna White for a day, and it spins and picks. So you'll be hearing. I'll be reaching out to you if you are the winner for that. So.
Do you want to? We should record that.
I need to do a couple other ones for our Google reviews, so you and I can spend some time and get those done. It's fun.
Yeah. And even if you aren't a winner, we'd love to hear from you how you're implementing AI in your business. If you have questions, Grant and I love to talk about this stuff with people. We'd love to set up a call just to talk about AI, how you're using it, technology. So we're a resource. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Excellent. Well, this was fun. We could go on it's like the thread you're pulling on the sweater, man. It just keeps going. And I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon. So I'm sure we'll have some other videos as we learn more.
Thank you, Tony, for moderating.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Great job. We'll see you.
Thank you.